The day of the shoot arrived like a fever dream. I prepared myself, of course, power suit, perfect makeup, the kind of armor that says, I'm successful and definitely not thinking about how you used to make me come undone with just a look. Then she walked into the studio. 15 years had been kind to Kira, where college had left her sharp and hungry. Success had given her this liquid confidence that moved through the room like honey. She wore jeans that probably cost more than my car payment and a cashmere sweater that hung off one shoulder, revealing the small constellation of freckles I'd once mapped with my tongue. Hello, Daphne, she said, and God, even her voice had changed deeper now, with this husky quality that made my name sound like a secret. Kira, I kept my voice level, professional. Thank you for doing this on short notice. She smiled, and I saw the flash of that slightly crooked incisor that had always made her look like she was planning something delicious and dangerous. For you, I'd do anything. The photographer, this pretentious artist named Marcus, who insisted on calling himself a visual storyteller, had envisioned something ethereal. Snow Queen meets Ice Goddess, all gossamer fabrics and crystalline white. What he got was something else entirely. The dress they'd chosen was barely their sheer white silk that caught the light like water, cut so low in the back that it was practically indecent. When Kira emerged from the dressing room, the entire crew went silent. Even the usually chatty makeup artist stopped mid-sentence. Perfect, Marcus breathed, adjusting his camera. Now, Kira, I want you to think about desire. Think about wanting something you can't have. Her eyes found mine across the room. That shouldn't be hard, she murmured. The shoot was torture. Pure, exquisite torture. Marcus directed her through pose after pose, each one more provocative than the last. Kira draped across a velvet chaise, the dress riding up to reveal the lace edge of her thigh-high stockings. Kira with her head thrown back, throat exposed, looking like she was in the throes of passion. Kira staring directly into the camera and somehow directly at me with those green eyes that had haunted my dreams for 15 years. I need more, Marcus called out, frowning at his camera. Display. The chemistry isn't quite there. Daphne, could you come over here for a moment? I'm sorry, what? I'd been so lost in watching her that I'd missed his direction. I want to try something. You two clearly have history. I can feel it from here. Let's use it. Before I could protest, I found myself standing next to the set. Kira's perfume, something expensive and woody with notes of amber, filled my senses. She was so close I could see the tiny scar on her collarbone from when she'd fallen off her bike in sophomore year. Touch her, Marcus instructed, just on the shoulder. Like you're adjusting the dress. My hand moved without my permission, fingertips brushing the silk strap. Kira's skin was warm beneath the fabric, and she shivered at the contact. The photographer's camera clicked rapidly. Beautiful, Marcus murmured. Now whisper something. To her, something private. I leaned in, my lips nearly touching her ear. I hate you for this, I whispered. Kira's breath caught. No, you don't, she whispered back, so quietly only I could hear. You hate that you still want me. The camera captured everything, the way my pupils dilated, the way her lips parted slightly, the way we both looked like we were about to devour each other right there on set. Give me tension, ladies, Marcus called out. Like you want to devour each other. Kira's laugh was low and dangerous. Don't mean to pretend for that, she said, loud enough for the crew to hear. The worst part? She wasn't wrong. The crew was buzzing about the electric chemistry before we'd even finished the shoot. I retreated to my office, trying to process what had just happened. My professional mask had slipped, and everyone had seen it. In the fashion world, that kind of vulnerability was either career suicide or pure gold. I stayed late that night, long after the building had emptied. The office felt different in the darkness, less like a workplace and more like a confessional. I was reviewing the preliminary shots when I heard the elevator ding. Working late? Kira appeared in my doorway like a beautiful ghost, still in that barely there dress, but now with a leather jacket thrown over it. What are you doing here? How did you even get up here? I told security I forgot my earrings. She produced a pair of diamond studs from her purse. Technically true, I did forget them, just not here. She perched on the edge of my desk, her thigh pressing against my scattered papers. The dress had ridden up, revealing the intricate lace pattern of her stockings. I forced myself to look at her face instead, which was a mistake because her expression was soft and knowing and completely devastating. Remember our dorm? She said, her fingers tracing the rim of my coffee cup, following the lipstick stain I'd left on the rim. How we'd study till dawn, I remembered. God, I remembered everything. The way she'd sit cross-legged on my bed, textbooks spread around her like a fort. How she'd steal my sweaters and wear them to class, coming back smelling like her perfume and autumn air. The night she'd kiss me for the first time, both of us drunk on cheap wine and the possibility of something neither of us had names for yet. I remembered being 20 years old and so in love it felt like drowning. I remembered her hands in my hair, her mouth on my neck, the way she'd whisper my name like a prayer. I remembered thinking we'd have forever. I said, my voice coming out hoarse. God, I remembered. I stood abruptly, knocking over the desk lamp. The light swung wildly, casting dancing shadows across the walls. Kira looked like something from a Renaissance painting, all golden skin and dark hair and dangerous beauty. We're professionals now, I said, but it sounded weak even to me. Then why are you shaking? She stood too, moving closer with that liquid grace that had made her famous. I was shaking. My hands, my voice, my resolve, everything was trembling like I was still that college girl who'd given her heart to someone who'd ultimately thrown it away. Because you left, I said, the words torn from somewhere deep in my chest. You left. Me, Kira. You left me to wake up alone, to wonder what I'd done wrong, to spend 15 years convincing myself I was over you. Her face crumpled. Daphne, no. I backed away from her, but the office wasn't big enough to escape the gravitational pull she'd always had on me. You don't get to look at me like that. You don't get to show up here and act like nothing happened. I was scared, she said simply. I was 22 and terrified, and I didn't know how to love someone the way I loved you. So you ran. So I ran. She reached for me, her fingertips brushing my wrist. Worst mistake of my life. The first kiss was angry, pent up, 15 years in the making. It was everything I'd dreamed about and everything I tried to forget. She tasted like regret and possibility, like the girl I'd loved and the woman she'd become. We knocked over coffee cups and scattered papers, my carefully organized world falling apart under the weight of what I'd kept buried for so long. Her hands were in my hair, mine were pushing her jacket off her shoulders, and somewhere in the chaos of rediscovering each other, I remembered why I'd fallen so hard the first time the next morning brought reality in the form of an anonymous email lighting up my computer screen. Inappropriate conduct between editor and model. Thought you should know. Someone had seen. Someone always sees. I stared at the message, my coffee turning cold in my hands. This was at the end of everything I'd built. The magazine, my reputation, my career. All for one night of weakness with a woman who'd already proven she couldn't be trusted. But when I was called into the CEO's office, I didn't get the reprimand I expected. Instead, I got something worse. Opportunity. The preliminary shots are incredible, Helena said, sliding a tablet across her desk. The buzz is already starting. Hashtag Kira Daphne is trending on Twitter. I looked at the images shots I hadn't even seen yet. Kira and me during the shoot, the tension between us crackling off the screen. Her fingers on my wrist, my lips near her ear, both of us looking like we were about to catch fire. "This is a disaster," I said. "This is marketing gold." Helena corrected. "The industry loves a good love story and a reunion. With this much chemistry, we'd be idiots not to lean into it. You want me to fake a relationship with her? I want you to be honest about whatever this is. Make her your muse. Give us a story that sells magazines." I thought about the email, about the whispers that would follow, about the way my professional reputation would be forever tangled with my personal life. But I also thought about the numbers, the engagement, the buzz, the potential to save not just the magazine, but dozens of jobs. "And if I refuse?" Helena's smile was sharp as a blade. "Then we'll have to consider whether you're the right fit for this position." What followed was the strangest month of my life. Kira and I fell into a pattern professional during the day, something else entirely after hours. She'd show up at my office when the building was empty, sometimes with takeout from that Thai place we'd loved in college, sometimes just with herself and that smile that made me forget why I'd ever been angry. We were supposed to be building a story, crafting a narrative that would sell magazines. Instead, we were rebuilding something that had broken 15 years ago, and I wasn't sure if that was beautiful or terrifying. "Why did you really leave?" I asked one night as we lay tangled together on the couch in my office, the city lights painting patterns on her skin. She was quiet for so long, I thought she might not answer. Then, my mother. I felt my chest tighten. I'd met Mrs. Thorne once, a brittle woman who looked at me like I was something that had crawled out from under a rock. "She found out about us," Kira continued, "about what we were to each other. She said she'd cut me off completely if I didn't. Fix myself. Said she wouldn't have a daughter who was like that." I turned to face her, seeing the old pain etched in the lines around her eyes. "Kira, I was supposed to meet you at graduation. I had this whole speech planned. I was going to tell you I loved you and ask you to move to New York with me. I was going to choose you over everything else. What happened?" She showed up at my dorm that morning, said she'd already talked to agencies, that she had meetings set up for me in Paris and Milan, said it was my chance to make something of myself, to be someone respectable. All I had to do was leave you behind. I closed my eyes, feeling the ghost of that old heartbreak. "So you did." "I was a coward," she said simply. I was 22 and terrified, and I thought maybe she was right. Maybe I could love you and still be the person she wanted me to be. And now, she smiled, and it was sad and knowing and absolutely devastating. Now I know that person doesn't exist. And I know I wasted 15 years trying to be someone I'm not. The photo shoot for the December issue was different from the first one. Marcus had outdone himself, creating a winter wonderland that looked like something from a fairy tale. But this time, when he directed us to touch, to look at each other, like we were in love, we weren't pretending. The camera captured everything, the way Kira's eyes lit up when she looked at me, the way I couldn't seem to stop smiling when she was near, the way we moved around each other like we were dancing, to music only we could hear. "This is it," Marcus said, reviewing the shots. "This is what love looks like." I thought about Helena's words, about giving the audience a story that sells magazines. But looking at those images, I realized we weren't crafting a narrative anymore. We were just being honest about something that had always been true. The magazine hit stands 3 weeks later. The cover was perfect Kira in my lap, both of us flushed and laughing, the headline reading, "Fashion's Hottest Reunion." But it was the editorial inside that really told our story. Page after page of us rediscovering each other, of chemistry that couldn't be faked, of a love story that had been 15 years in the making. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Hashtag Kira Daphne exploded across social media. Sales numbers that had been falling for months suddenly skyrocketed. The magazine that had been on the brink of closure was suddenly the hottest thing in publishing. But more importantly, for the first time in 15 years, I felt like myself again. The launch party was held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art because Helena believed in doing things with style. The entire fashion world was their designers, models, photographers, journalists, everyone who mattered in our industry. They'd all come to see the magazine that had somehow saved itself. And more specifically, to see us. Kira was radiant in a black dress that hugged her curves like a second skin, her hair swept up to show off the delicate line of her neck. She worked the room like the professional she was, charming everyone from editors to photographers to the donors who kept the museum running. But every few minutes, her eyes would find mine across the room, and she'd smile like we were sharing a secret. "You did it," Helena said, appearing at my elbow with 2 glasses of champagne. "December sales are through the roof." The website crashed twice from traffic. We've got advertising requests backed up for months. I accepted the champagne, watching Kira laugh at something a photographer was saying. "We did it," I corrected. "So what's next for you two?" It was a good question. We'd save the magazine, rebuild our relationship, and somehow manage to turn our personal drama into professional success. But what came after the happy ending? "I don't know," I said honestly. "We're figuring it out as we go." Helena smiled. Sometimes that's the best way. The evening was winding down when Kira took the microphone. She'd been asked to say a few words about the shoot, about the magazine, about the collaboration that had saved us all. When I first walked into that studio, she began, her voice carrying across the room. I thought I was just doing a job, a favor for an old friend. I had no idea I was about to get the chance to fix the biggest mistake of my life. The room fell silent. This wasn't the polished speech I'd expected. 15 years ago, I walked away from the best thing that ever happened to me. She continued, her eyes finding mine. I was young and scared, and I thought I had to choose between love and success. I chose wrong. She stepped down from the platform, moving through the crowd toward me. People stepped aside, sensing something momentous was happening. "Daphne," she said, now close enough that I could see the tears in her eyes. "I've spent 15 years trying to prove I was worthy of success. But the only thing I've ever wanted to be worthy of is you." And then she was dropping to one knee, right there in front of everyone, pulling out a ring box that made my heart stop. "I know I don't deserve a second chance," she said, her voice shaking. "I know I hurt you, and I know I left when I should have stayed. But I also know that loving you is the only thing I've ever done that felt completely right." The ring was a moonstone surrounded by tiny diamonds that caught the light like stars. It was perfect, unique, and beautiful, and nothing like what anyone else would have chosen. "That stupid matching tattoo," I whispered, remembering the tiny crescent moon. We'd gotten inked on our wrists during spring break senior year. "You remembered." "I remembered everything," she said. "Every moment, every kiss, every time you made me feel like I was worth something. Marry me, Daphne. Let me spend the rest of my life proving that I'm not going anywhere this time." I looked around the room at Helena beaming with pride, at the photographers capturing every moment, at the crowd of people who'd watched our story unfold in the pages of a magazine. Then I looked back at Kira, kneeling on the marble floor with her heart in her hands. "Yes," I said, and the word came out like a sob. "Yes, of course, yes." The crowd erupted as she slid the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly, like it had been made for me. Like maybe it had been waiting 15 years for this moment, just like we had. She stood and kissed me, and it tasted like champagne and tears and the future we'd almost lost. As the applause died down, she leaned close to whisper in my ear, "This time, I'm not letting you go." People ask me sometimes if I regretted mixing business with pleasure, letting my personal life become public, building a career on the foundation of a love story. The answer is complicated. Like most things worth having, the magazine thrived. Our relationship became the template for a new kind of brand, authentic, vulnerable, real in a way that felt revolutionary in an industry built on artifice. We did more shoots, more stories, more collaborations. The business side of our relationship became as strong as the personal side. But more importantly, we figured out how to be together without losing ourselves. Kira learned to stay when things got difficult. I learned to trust that she wouldn't disappear when I needed her most. We built something new on the foundation of what we'd lost, something stronger, because it was built by adults who understood the cost of walking away. The wedding was small, just family and a few close friends in a garden in Tuscany. Kira wore a dress that looked like it was made of sunlight, and I wore a suit that made me feel like I could conquer the world. We wrote our own vows, promises about staying and fighting, and choosing each other every day. Vivante magazine went on to win 3 industry awards that year. The December issue became the best-selling issue in the magazine's history. My relationship with Kira became the thing people knew me for, and somehow that felt like a victory instead of a limitation. But the real victory was smaller and more personal. It was waking up every morning next to someone who'd chosen me, not just once, but repeatedly, day after day. It was building a life with someone who understood that love isn't just a feeling. It's a decision you make over and over again. Some mistakes are worth repeating, the final caption had read. But we'd learned that the best love stories aren't about mistakes at all. They're about second chances, about growing up, about learning the person you thought you needed to be and the person you actually are don't have to be the same. 5 years later, when interviewers ask me about the secret to our success, both professional and personal, I tell them the truth. There's no secret. Just 2 people who learned that love isn't about finding someone you can live with. It's about finding someone you can't live without and then doing whatever it takes to build a life together. The rest, as they say, is just good editing.